Hello everyone, I'm Annie Gibbins and you're listening to Memoirs of Successful Women, the podcast where you get to hear candid conversations with fascinating women from around the globe who share aspects of their business and life journey, how they measure their success and what they have learnt along the way. In today's ever-changing, complex business environment, it is imperative that leaders upskill and reskill so they can manage for the future. So today I am thrilled to be interviewing resilience and leadership coach Wendy Tansey, who uses her 30 years of leadership experience to specialise in helping people future-proof their career and business. Welcome, Wendy.
Thank you.
I'd love for you to share your story with my listeners today about your journey to become emerging leaders expert, specialist. How have you sort of had your gone through your career journey to achieve where you are today?
I didn't set out to be a emerging leader specialist. I started off as a youth worker and spent 8 years working with homeless young people. Which I really enjoyed. And for me, when I left school, that was, about helping. I felt that I was quite privileged growing up. I grew up in a working class family and had an awesome family. And I kept coming across young people who didn't have that opportunity. And I wanted to make sure or see how I could help them to be part of, helping them have someone that would care and love them. And as I got married and had kids, I found myself kind of I went back to study and upgrade my qualifications from youth work to psychology. And I fell into HR, which wasn't, I didn't actually choose to go there, but it made sense for me to move into that more management. I was managing a youth housing service for about 4 years, became a leader when I was 21 and had absolutely no idea what I was doing. Had a team of 5 and 8 casuals, and then 30, which rolled out to 30 casuals, where I ran this housing service and doubled the offering for young people from 4 to 8 crisis accommodation. And when I went into HR, I knew that I had really good organisational skills. I knew how to manage, but I didn't know how to lead. I spent the next 20 years in HR in different roles with different industries. And I think I always knew that there was something else. I love doing training. I love developing people. I love sitting down and doing that career development, looking at how I can support people. And I suppose between doing psych and having youth work and all those things, I knew there was something more for me. I was in a role where I left and I thought, no, I've got to do something different. So I started my own consulting business in the HR space, and that's developed into the emerging leaders. So I didn't set out actually to come into this, but I really am quite excited and passionate about where it's landed.
It's interesting because you're saying you didn't set out to do that, but you've definitely expressed in that a real journey that you knew your compassionate heart. You knew your purpose was to build others up and to provide opportunities for them to thrive more, benefit more in their housing and so forth. You also mentioned that you sort of landed in HR and it didn't seem it was a great fit for you. So even though you spent a long time there, why do you say it wasn't your final landing to be in HR?
I don't think I mean, back then it was more personnel, so we're talking 20 odd years ago. And I don't know that I actually set out to be, it wasn't an area that I went, I want to be in HR, and not that there's anything wrong with HR. I think, HR brings some things to the business about people where, they should be actually thinking about how do we develop our people and how do we do things differently. But for me personally, I'm not black and white. I actually am quite comfortable in ambiguity. I'm quite comfortable in the grey, and I think in the HR space you need to be a little bit more black and white. So I actually like to stir things up a bit and go, okay, how do we do this differently? What do we do to make this work, rather than go, this is how we've always done it. So I think sometimes I probably, I think people find it really surprising when I go, no, we're not going to do it that way. We're going to do it really differently. And when I first went into my own business, it was called Unique HR Solutions, because I was offering businesses a unique way of looking at things rather than doing it the same.
And I think a lot of HR is that systematic sort of mindset of these are policies, procedures, they're frameworks that actually, interestingly, are more aligned to support the business than the employee, in a sense that you're actually making sure that the business thrives and succeeds because of the resources that they have, as opposed to the human element and the passion that you would have. And obviously, the fact that you did psych as your major, I can see the disconnect there, because that psych background and expertise would actually align you more to the fluidity and changeability of growth and personal variables.
Yeah, I think you're right, and that was part of it. But I then went on, actually, interesting enough, to do my MBA, which I did when my kids were little. So I was, up doing study in the middle of the night while I was feeding them, which was,
oh, I relate to that.
The things that you do, I'd be having one underarm breastfeeding while I was writing an assignment.
Yep.
So, but I went on to do my MBA because I didn't understand some of the aspects of business, and coming from a youth work background, I wanted to understand how to read a P&L, how to understand marketing, and they were really good things to learn. They set me up to understand business and to be able to be kind of in that middle, but it also pointed out to me that being in the grey was where I was comfortable. Even though that's not very comfortable for a lot of people, being ambiguous and being able to go, okay, there's two sides to this, and we can pull this together by looking at both sides or both aspects of it. And so I wanted to do something that added the coaching, that added, I guess that different side of how you can integrate learning into your everyday, rather than you go off and when you come back you actually then have to work through how you integrate that. For example, I was doing some executive coaching with a young guy who went and he'd done a whole week of training, and why he engaged me to coaching was, he goes, I've done all this training and I don't really actually know how to integrate it in with my team. So we worked through how he would do that.
I think that's a really interesting point, because I found that myself. I went off and did a week of Lean Six Sigma course, and then I came back to work, and when I said, how do I then apply that to, how do I start changing it, how do I integrate that into the work that I do and the office that I have, and so there often is a disconnect. That it was really valuable learning, but it's the application, I suppose, that then consolidates that and will bring out a whole fresh new array of learning opportunities and thinking and shifts in the person. So terrific. So tell me about your business now.
So what I do now is there's a number of things. So I do a little bit of consulting still in the HR space for startups, but what I am offering now is a micro learning course online. So they're tiny bite-sized modules where someone would they go online into the course, they do the module for the week, and then we have 2 group coaching sessions where we actually then can discuss what's going on in that module and how they're applying it to their business. So there's a framework that they take away and they look at and go, okay, this is the theory behind it, or this is, something that might be, they've got to think through how it relates to them and how it relates to their team, or if they don't have a team yet, what they think they might be able to do differently. So it's then taking it and applying all the principles to their business. So it's not me going, okay, this is what you have to do. It's taking it aside. For example, we might look at feedback, and it might be, okay, how do you give your team feedback? What are the challenges you have? And they actually have to apply it to their own business and their own selves.
Have you noticed a big difference of people coming through now, these new emerging leaders, compared to the leaders that we were, maybe 20 years ago, the way they approach leadership?
Yeah, very different. I think, when I first was a leader at 21, I didn't know what I was doing. I had no idea. I was actually quite good at management, and I'm highly organised, but I didn't know how to lead a team. And so I think, now what I'm seeing is I actually think leaders are quite gutsy, whereas I was probably a little bit more tentative. And there wasn't a lot of support for women in leadership. You had to also be considered more masculine, whereas I think now leadership, bringing in that feminine type leadership, things like empathy, which are feminine traits, not saying they're female traits, but they're feminine traits. And I think seeing that with women and young people now being able to embrace leadership differently, and I think there's more freedom in that.
Oh, definitely more freedom for sure. So how do you measure success in what you're achieving in your business? What does success look like for you?
One of the most important values that I think I've always had from doing youth work all the way through is seeing people change and develop. And that's what success looks for me, is seeing the difference that makes for people. It's not the money or any of that side for me. It is definitely, from beginning to end, the difference that makes. So coaching someone to achieve what they want to achieve and hit their goals. And if someone comes out differently and achieves what they want to achieve, that's what success is for me.
And what would what would one of your clients say that they have learned from their experience with you?
Oh, goodness.
What's your dream customer say?
I think as long as at the end of the day they feel that they've achieved what they've wanted, and that they're happy that they've reached where they want to get to, but also the journey's not ending. That I hope I've given them enough skills, and that they say that this is the beginning of their journey, because I don't think 12 weeks you're there. I hope I've given them enough skills to continue in their journey.
Yeah, so you're encouraging them to have active learning mindset, and that's it for all of us. We're all on a continual journey of improvement in our systems, processes, thinking, everything that we do for our whole lives, personally and professionally. And so I think what you've definitely demonstrated that the way we approach work has definitely changed. We used to go off to a course. It was almost like you get filled up with knowledge, you get inspired, you then have that, and then you're done. Whereas now, and I notice you called it micro learning opportunities. And so that's very much it. You're going about your day, and many opportunities are going, okay, well, I just want to tap into that. How do I lead better? How do I give feedback in a more professional way and more positive way? How do I empower my colleague to get the best out of them in a certain area? These are all opportunities that I think we are getting better and better at breaking down those micro elements. And also, as an educationalist myself, knowing that people can only process so much information. We do better if we get a little bit of information, and then we reflect on that and we implement it, we integrate it into the environment that we're in, and then we assess and monitor, well, how did that go? And that can actually take some time. And I find often the opportunity given to us is actually just too much. I find that if I go to a whole day seminar on something, my brain is just exploding, going, oh my gosh. But if you ask me, well, what did you learn at 9:30 in the morning? Sometimes I've forgotten. Now I'm really great with the journal. I'm writing down all these points because it's just too much. And so I think that's wonderful what you're actually doing, creating an environment for micro learning so that those future leaders are actually seeing this. There's so many elements to growing as a leader, and so you're able to tap in and out of those as your journey goes. And the concept, I'm assuming, you'll see that that's right. If they're like me, your thinking will change over the years on the same topic, and it certainly has for me, which is a good thing.
Yeah, I agree. Like, I think back to when I first became a leader and how I viewed that to how I view things now. It's completely different. And, I did do a little bit of training, but I had no concept on how to integrate it. Absolutely no idea. And, the organisation I was with was really awesome in that they provided us with ongoing coaching, which was very unusual back then. And I had I caught up with kind of, because it was youth work, we had kind of a mentoring supervision once a quarter, and that was really helpful to integrate some of the things, and I could ask questions. But I think it's very different now in that, feedback and what we see is so quick. But we still go off and do a course. How do we integrate that?
Do you think businesses are becoming a lot more aware of what their employees require in the whole area of future leadership?
I'd say some do and some don't. I don't know that it's universal. I think there's still some very old school businesses out there that aren't, they're going to have to change so, because in order to attract and keep talent, and to be able to retain those really awesome people, they're going to have to do things differently. But I still think there's some very old school businesses out there that haven't shifted, and they're going to struggle to attract young people coming through.
I think they definitely will be struggling, because the millennials that I know, coming through, and the future generation behind them are very much agile. They're mobile. They're opportunistic. They're not as loyal as we've been before, and so therefore opportunities to learn and grow, they will expect that. They've been schooled in active learning, group learning opportunities, application. What does that look like in scenario-based learning, as opposed to fill me up and just teach me content. And so I'm imagining that this is a whole new growth space for people in the business that you are, to be able to facilitate those opportunities, that once people leave school, that they actually do get that in the business environment. And I think companies will have to become more aware of that, because otherwise, it'd have to affect their retention.
Absolutely correct. I kind of don't think it's any different as each generation enters the workforce. We, even as Gen X, we came in and we had different ideas. And I think millennials are coming in and they've got different ideas, and Gen Z will come in and they've got different ideas on how business is. And businesses have to keep changing as each generation comes in. And I actually think if you don't, you will not attract the talent. You won't grow as a business. You won't move forward. And taking different types of leadership, like micro-learning or whatever that might be, will help your business in the long run.
What has been your biggest career learning to date?
know that there's a biggest one. There's certainly been lots along the way.
Yeah.
Certainly becoming, as I said, the company I was with when I was doing youth work, or one of the businesses, did a lot of you had to do a lot of self-reflection. And I've still done that along the way. So I still journal. I still actually do a lot of self-development. And I think that set me up right as when I was quite young, that this was a really important thing for me to do. And then I don't know that I'd say there's a biggest one, but there's been a lot of little things along the way. Some really great mentors I've had, a couple of awesome women that I've been able to tap into and spend some time with and learn from them. And I think also some of the businesses, we were reflecting before about what, we don't like in a business. And I think or a leader, and I've certainly, taken some of those as I've thought about my own leadership and about as I'm working with young people and saying to them, what don't you like and what do you then think can work and what can you adapt into your own leadership style.
What do you said you've had some mentors. What have been your biggest learnings from those mentors? What do you get inspired about them?
Yeah, so probably the first mentor I can think of was actually a teacher in high school that lived up the road from me. And one of the things she said was she talked about do something that scares you every day, which is Eleanor Roosevelt's statement. And I've taken that really on board in everything that I do. I learned to scuba dive, and that was kind of scary, but I absolutely love it now. And there's different things like that I've gone, okay, I'm a little bit fearful in, or that scares the hell out of me to do that. But then I go, no, do something that scares you every day.
I love that. I'm there with you. That's right. Your fear factor definitely changes. I can just bungee jump off anything now.
That was one thing that, challenged me. Another woman that I worked very closely with, who was my manager, very similar. She, it was just about calling me out on and not letting me get away with playing games or whatever it might be when you're young and you kind of go. And she just really called me out and said, Wendy, I actually see you as being my replacement. And so, this is what I think you need to work on. And it was just that challenge from those mentors. And I think that's one of the most important things as a mentor that you can do, is not just go along with whatever the person is actually about challenging them and calling them out on some of the things that they come up with.
Yeah, I think that's, as a mentor myself, I find that the best value, that you're there for them and you're trying to, some people want to do something that scares them every day, and most people want to do just to do one extra step that they would have done, whatever that looks like. And so people have different sort of, you don't want to freak them out, you don't want to make them go into fear overdrive, but you do want to challenge them. And I think we as leaders will know that, we have become the people that we are because of those growth opportunities, that if we didn't push ourselves in that way, if we didn't act on other people's encouragement of us and those positive words in our head, we wouldn't be where we are today. And so also to realise that they're very powerful words then, aren't they? When we support other women around us and people in business, so the words that we say have incredible value to people. The fact that we can remember what a school teacher said to us, or I remember being at a piano lesson and being absolutely appalling, and I hated it. And I had a big cry, and the lady goes, she goes, "You don't like piano, do you?" I went, "I hate it." And she said, "Well, darling, everybody has a talent and you just have to concentrate on what yours is," and blah blah blah. And I kind of went, it wasn't about the piano and quitting, it was actually going, I went home for the next years afterwards, like, what's my talent? It gave me this view that there's try a whole lot of other things, because maybe that's not it. I think you were reflecting before on that you're a bit more grey than black and white. And I think in your consulting business, you're able to sort of show people that they have different talents, different ways of thinking, different opportunities that they just need to be pushed in to actually have a lot of confidence. I think we often don't like going outside the black and white because of fear of failure, fear of embarrassment, fear of being humiliated, fear of losing their job, fearing people are laughing at them, whatever it is. And so that's the craziness, that once you actually go, do something a little bit wild, a little bit crazy, a little bit left field, because that's where the innovation comes, that's where the growth comes. And sometimes it is completely balmy and we shoot it down, but we've had that opportunity. But often the left field thinking is the winner on the day. And so I think it's wonderful that you're empowering this future generation of young leaders to actually be thinking outside the box, but not just thinking outside the box, to be given permission to actually really expand on that and to continue pushing themselves and growing to to challenge previously held views, because that's how we all benefit.
Correct. And it absolutely is. It is about challenging those views, without a doubt.
Well, thank you so much for coming on my program today. I think you're definitely making a lot of magic happen in your world, as I do, and I really appreciate the time that we've had chatting today. Thank you, Wendy.
Thank you for having me. I've really enjoyed talking to you.
Thanks so much for listening to this episode of Memoirs of Successful Women. You can find me at anniegibbins.com, where you can download my free resources, get connected on social, and check out my online magic transformation program. If you love this show, feel free to subscribe to future episodes, and of course, share it with your friends. I'll see you again soon, and until then, happy podcasting.